Welcome, everyone. We are really glad that you're here with us on the webinar. And if you've ever felt the weight of the holidays, you've probably felt some kind of mixture of joy, heaviness, laughter, longing. If you ever felt those things, you're definitely in the right place. But tonight is not about fixing anything. It's just about creating a safe space for you to reflect, take a breath, and to understand how to navigate through this holiday season in an emotionally healthy way. So we'll be together for about an hour, followed by a Q&A, and we will answer every question that you have. Our hope tonight is basically just that you will feel lighter when you leave. You'll feel more seen. You'll feel better equipped to face this season with peace and grace.
Yes, and we love to start with this quote: "Blessed is the season which engages the whole world in a conspiracy of love." And this is just a beautiful vision, right? So, a season filled with love, generosity, and connection. But for some of us, the holidays can stir up a complicated mix of emotions. And really, this season can act like a mirror. It can reflect our joy, but it also can reveal our grief. And for some, it's family, it's laughter, it's cherished traditions. But for others, it can be a reminder of who or what is missing. Memories of loved ones, anniversaries of loss, or maybe even an ache of an unresolved goodbye. And that's why we're here. We want to peel back the curtain and explore what it looks like to honor both our grief and our hope.
So let me just introduce ourselves really quickly. We are Daniel and Vicki Hagadorn, founders of Freedom from Grief. And for more than 20 years, we have walked with people through the deep work of grief recovery and emotional healing. And one of the things that we have learned again and again is that our culture does not teach us how to process emotions. We're simply told to be strong, move on, keep smiling, pick your favorite cliche and insert it there. But when the holidays arrive, all of that suppressed emotion resurfaces. And this season has a way of bringing everything to that surface and inviting us to face what's really going on inside.
The holidays can magnify grief because whatever we are feeling becomes magnified, like we've been saying. And as we process any difficult emotions, we need to balance two opposing needs. We need to rest to heal. That is creating space to reflect, feel, and process. But we also want to have some action in order to rebuild, which is taking steps towards re engaging with life, processing our emotions. And these tasks really require different energies. And as we heal, we naturally move between them, right? There's a rhythm. But holidays can disrupt that rhythm because it really demands both rest and action all at once. So, with traditions and gatherings, these things can highlight what's missing, and the absence can feel sharper during the holidays. And expectations can feel heavier. There's pressure to plan, to celebrate, and to even generate joy. And this can create a tug of war. It's this feeling between grief and obligation. And that can leave us feeling overwhelmed and just conflicted. So, naming this inner conflict is really the first step in navigating a challenging season with grace. And that's why it can become a pressure cooker of impossible expectations when we start to enter into the holidays. But what if we gave ourselves permission to be in one place at a time, to honor where we are without shame or guilt?
Here's a reality. In December, there's a 15% increase in people seeking emotional support. Recovery communities experience much higher relapse rates during this time. The reason is pretty simple because holidays don't just invite joy, they also intensify everything that we're already carrying. And that's why understanding grief and loss is so important because you cannot heal what you cannot name.
Yes. And so before we talk about emotions, during the holidays, we want to understand what grief really is. Grief is the normal and natural reaction to loss of any kind. So, most grief stems from what we call undelivered emotional communications. These are things that we never got to say, we never got to hear or express. And we've been taught to minimize or intellectualize our feelings. So, we tell ourselves things like, well, it's not that bad, or I should be grateful. At least it wasn't fill in the blank. So we've learned how to intellectualize our emotions, how to go to our head and not our hearts. But suppressing emotions does not erase, it doesn't erase them, right? It just buries them alive.
Yeah.
So unspoken emotions stay inside us, they shape our thoughts, it shapes our behavior, our reactions, our patterns until we learn how to release them.
Yeah. And when people hear grief, right, they almost always think of death or divorce. And those are absolutely grieving events. But what people don't realize is there's more than 40 different types of losses that people will experience in a lifetime. These are things like career changes, breakups, moving, miscarriages, lost trust, lost safety, lost dreams. Even
Mm.
childhood experiences like growing up with an emotionally distant parent can leave behind unprocessed grief. And most of us were never taught how to handle this. So we carry all these layers of unresolved loss into adulthood. And the truth is, almost everyone you meet is grieving something.
So we define it like this: unresolved grief is the conflicting feelings caused by the end of a familiar pattern of behavior. So this means that every transition brings some kind of grief with it. Even if it's good, even if you're moving into something good, you are leaving something behind. And if you can't quite put your emotions into words, those conflicting feelings, that's what we call grief.
Yeah.
And crying helps. Crying is a good thing, it's a release, right? But tears alone do not complete grief. Completion happens through communication, through expressing what was left unsaid.
Right. So, how do you know if grief is showing up in your life? Well, there's a couple things that you might notice. You might notice yourself feeling detached or distant. You might notice anger or irritability, isolation, fatigue, repeating old patterns, usually self destructive patterns, without really understanding why. The holidays is what brings all of this to the surface. And as a result, we overindulge, we overspend, we overcommit, all in an attempt to fill the void. But awareness is the beginning of healing. And one of the major and most destructive myths about grief, it's my personal pet peeve, is that time heals wounds, that just time is going to heal those emotional wounds. Well, the truth of the matter is, time in and of itself does nothing to heal. Remember that without proper communication, we will carry these unresolved emotional wounds for a lifetime. I mean, think about it. With physical wounds, we would never say that. We would go to the doctor right away and get whatever treatment we needed in order to heal. Our emotional wounds work the same way. Without intentionally going through a healing process and learning the appropriate tools, they will remain with us.
Yeah, so let's look at how the holidays tend to make all of this even harder. Let's introduce you to this young lady. Her name is Sally. We're going to call her Sally. And as a child, this is what she was experiencing. She was experiencing bullying. Her parents got divorced. And around that same time, her dog Sadie died. She lost her dog. And her mom was emotionally shut down from all that was going on. So she really wasn't invested in or even talked to a lot. She felt very alone. Her dad stayed out of the day to day circumstances of her life, and he remarried pretty quickly after the divorce. And her older sister, who was dealing with it in her own way, she really didn't want her around, and she was very distant. So, unless this young lady has close people around her to support her and help her process these losses, if she had people around her that could tell her, it isn't your fault, it isn't you, let's talk about how you're feeling, then she might be able to process them. But if she doesn't, these losses just stay with her. They go down, they go deep in, and each of these losses leave a mark. And we call this emotional energy because it stays inside and it's not processed or resolved. So now let's look at Sally as an adult. And we'll see her as an adult. And that's the next one, honey. And we'll see her as an adult. And where did all these losses from childhood go? Yes, that is right. They stayed with her. And on top of that, do you think she accumulated more losses along the way? Yeah, she sure did. And that is why most people on the planet are grieving something. This is also demonstrates how loss is cumulative. It doesn't get better with time. It actually gets worse because it gets compounded, right? These unaddressed losses get compounded, and then we carry them into relationships. As we get older, we experience breakups. We might lose or leave a job. We move. We have financial stress. We lose friendships. All of these things just compound because they just build on top of, on top of. And so as she carries these into her life, into her work, and yes, even into these holidays.
Yeah. And one of the things that we've been saying now is that the holidays tend to compound the issue of grief or amplify it because they have a way of highlighting the things that we wish were different, better, or more. And so to illustrate how that happens, we're now going to turn Sally into a tea kettle.
Yes.
So we're going to take this tea kettle, we're going to fill it with water to represent the unresolved emotional issues that she's carrying, right? And if we're looking at Sally, I would say she is a pretty full tea kettle, right? So now it's the holiday season. Sally's about to visit her family. Wow, those are some of the same family members who hurt her as a child. In addition, there are some family members who will not be present because they passed away. Now, maybe we put another flame, right? Sally also realizes that though the year is coming to an end, she's not where she thought she would be. Now, put another flame in. She's reminded of an old boyfriend or a relationship that didn't work out. Another flame. She's faced with the state of her finances as she attempts to purchase Christmas presents. Another flame. Her sister's angry with her because she's not able to visit again this year. Another flame. You see the picture? I'm certain we can all think of flames that are underneath our own tea kettles, so to speak.
Yeah.
Those flames are triggers. And so our holiday picture is not quite complete because there's one more component. Now we're going to put a cork in the spout of the tea kettle. We call this cork the shoulds. It represents all of the internal and external pressure that we, and Sally in this example, face during the holidays, right? I should be happy. I should be grateful. I should feel loving toward my family. I should not feel any sadness. I should be concerned about other people no matter what they say. I should be about the kids. I should be joyful like the TV commercials show, etc. The shoulds. But it's these internal and external pressures that keep the kettle from releasing steam. And all of that makes it harder and harder to cope. And so it's small wonder that December feels like a perfect storm of stress.
Yes. So it's really important to recognize that our capacity to experience life was already limited before we got to the holidays. So if you think about Sally, we can use her as our example and we know our own. We know that we're sitting in that recipe for disaster. That tea kettle is filled with water that represents emotional energy. And so we know that we're sitting in that recipe for disaster. So early we briefly mentioned our tendency to overindulge or overspend over the holiday season. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into this because this is how we cope. This is how we take the cork out, so to speak, of our tea kettle. We turn to what we call short-term energy relieving behaviors or STIRBs. So these are the things that we go to when we don't want to feel. They give us an illusion of providing relief, and we usually learn them through family or through the culture around us. We go to things like overeating, shopping, drinking, binge watching TV, isolating, all of those things. And when around the holidays, it tends to bring it up even more.
Yeah. Now, these do provide temporary relief, right? I mean, there is that moment, but they don't address the root of the pain.
Right.
We're usually just we feel emptier afterwards. So you can see by our tea kettle analogy how these behaviors can become intensified during the holidays. And then when the season passes, not only do the unresolved grief and loss remain, but now you've likely added to your debt. You might have even gained a few pounds, or at the very least, you're moving into the new year with a strong desire to change your unhealthy coping patterns and stop self destructing. This also helps us to understand why January can be such a difficult month because we're trying to get back into our lives. And part of what's making that more difficult is that we've been checking out to get through the holidays, and now whammo, January comes along and it feels like we're being thrust into real life all at once.
Yeah. So we want to say, and we're going to take a little turn right now, is what we've learned so that we can move forward, right? So we've learned that there are multiple types of loss, and we understand that grief is about undelivered communication. We've realized that most of us are grieving in some way, and we've looked at ways that we cope that are not healthy. So now what? Well, now we're going to get to the best part because we definitely don't want to leave you here because we do have good news. And we can tell you that you've already taken a first step just by being here. You're increasing your awareness of grief and loss and holiday stress. And awareness paves the way to positive change.
Yeah, awareness and acceptance, they go hand in hand. And we've been conditioned to believe that we must feel a certain way during the holidays. Well, who says?
Mm,
What we need to do is let go of societal or self imposed pressures to feel a certain way during the holidays. So take the cork out, release all of the quote unquote shoulds, because this is what's going to free your heart to engage with the present moment. Take a moment to think about this. What are the shoulds that you are feeling right now? You can share them with us in the chat, or you can write them down for yourself to think about later. But this is really valuable to connect to because by recognizing them and naming them, you can process them.
yeah.
Is maybe there's something that you feel like you can't say no to. Having healthy boundaries is not only okay, it is absolutely crucial. It's so important. So, can you talk about these things with someone safe who can help and support you?
Yes. So you can change your relationship with your STIRBs. You now recognize that STIRBs are not a solution. They might give you short term relief, but they usually bring long term consequences. So you want to start to see your STIRBs as indicators, not solutions. So when you find yourself gravitating towards those behaviors, ask yourself, what am I avoiding? What feeling am I avoiding? And write it down. Have a journal. Have a special holiday journal if you want, or a journal. Some people like to journal in their phone, but you want to start connecting to that. What's underneath that? What am I avoiding feeling? You want to be able to start processing your emotions in a constructive way because you really want to change a habit of these old coping mechanisms and do something healthy for yourself this season. So, to do that, you can make a commitment to yourself. Maybe like you're going to walk every day for 45 minutes, something that gets you out of the normal process. You can share it here, but we recommend that you take a moment to really think about it. What's the one thing that's popping into your head? Write it down, make it stick, get it out there. because just by doing something different is going to help you change your pattern of behavior, because your old responses are deeply ingrained in you, and they are literally neural pathways in your brain that pull you into the familiar in order to feel comforted and protected. So it is possible to rewire those into healthy and positive habits instead.
Yeah. Another thing is just to leverage these things, because so often we blame the triggers around us for the feelings inside of us. But remember, the flames didn't put the water in the tea kettle, right? The water was already there. So we mistakenly believe that if we just steer clear of those family members, if we just sleep through the holidays or just isolate, then we're taking care of our emotional health. Here's the truth: triggers don't create our feelings. They help us understand what's unresolved in our hearts. They're like windows. And if
Yep.
we're willing to look through the window, we will see what's going on. Recognize that triggers often highlight areas that need healing. Remember, one of the things we've talked about, you cannot intellectualize your emotions. You must feel them to heal them, right? So just write down what you're expecting when you feel triggered. A really good prompt to do this is to ask yourself this question: what do I wish was different, better, or more? This really helps you connect to what you're actually feeling and to begin to process your emotional truth instead of staying embroiled in the conflicting feelings that are bringing anxiety and hopelessness and other things.
Yeah. And finally, talk with safe people. Writing these things is good, but communicating with a safe person is even better. Because remember what we said earlier, unresolved grief is undelivered communication of an emotional nature. And that's exactly what we mean here. Delivering communication is being able to talk to someone that can hold space and let you share. And so you want to take care of yourself by setting up time to talk with a safe person, someone you can express your heart with without being judged, minimized, compared, or corrected, right? It's not about fixing, it's about listening. And we know how valuable this is. This will support you in processing through those feelings instead of stuffing them and creating more stress. And so you may have discovered that you have unresolved grief that's limiting your life in some way. And the tools that we have explored here will give you insight and help you navigate through the holidays. But we want you to do much more than just survive these holidays, right? We want you to thrive. And so we want to, put this out there to connect with us, set up a call. As we close, we want to leave you with that. Everything that we've explored together in this workshop is just the beginning. Because in the grief recovery method, we go deeper, really much deeper into these tools and into these truths. And with every ounce of our being, we believe in the transformative power of this process. It's unlike anything else out there because it addresses the heart of what keeps us stuck. So, if you're longing for change, whether it's breaking free from self sabotaging patterns, cultivating healthier relationships, or stepping boldly into the next chapter of your life, as we're finishing a year, we're stepping into a brand new year, right? We know that this program offers a path to true healing. It equips you, it gives you, it helps you to release the old things, to confront them and release the old wounds that have held you back. And it really paves the way for growth, freedom, and fulfillment. And it's the kind of thing that if you've done grief recovery, we always really recommend that you do more relationships, do alumni work. And if you are in a recovery program, like a sobriety program or any kind of addiction, eating disorder, any kind of emotional thing that you're getting help for, we highly recommend this. I really want to speak to your heart, because if you're not addressing the unresolved grief in your life, you're not getting to the root of your struggles. And really that's a missing link to recovery of any kind. And so until you face that grief, true freedom will remain out of reach. And we want to encourage you that you were created for so much more and to live in freedom and joy and purpose, because this really is about stepping fully into the life that you are meant to live, not just survive, but to just thrive, really. And we're here to walk you through that every step of the way. So if you're ready to break through and begin your new year equipped to soar, we invite you to set up a call with us. Both Dan and I are available for a free call to hear all about your story and help you experience these tools. And if you were invited by a grief recovery specialist, we encourage you to reach out to them. They are so equipped and they're ready to share these tools with you. The grief recovery method is the gold standard of healing from grief and loss. And we're excited because you are going to get a replay of this webinar and links to connect. But we also have a gift for joining us. We have a free, it's a guide, and it kind of gives you an overview of the tools that we've talked about to help you navigate your emotions during this holiday season.
Yeah. So now we want to take a minute for any questions that you might have. And we are happy to stay on. As long as you have questions, we will stay on to answer them. So I just want to put that out there.
So I can unmute you all if you do have a question. Oh,
It's really, really helpful, really great. The question that I always feel unsure of when people ask is how do you how do you celebrate when your heart is broken? Because I know part of it is guilt, or you feel that you can't do this, but is there something to say to them? I know it's hard. But what do we say?
Is your question like for you, or like what can you say to someone who's really grieving and having a hard time?
What can I say to
Okay.
someone that is like just this week, there's 3 people that one lost her daughter, and I believe it was by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And then another 15-year-old died from cancer. And there was so just I'm just thinking of the holidays for them,
Yeah.
and I'm like, and just based on what other people have asked in the past, in presentations, is like, but how can you have joy when your heart is so broken?
Yeah. And I think the first thing that comes to my mind is letting people know that they have permission to grieve. Like if they're not feeling the joy, to really be gentle with themselves, rest, let people know, and even ask, like, even in a conversation, like if you're able to talk to them, even to get them to ask, what do I wish could be different, better, more, and even to talk about it, because talking about it, even if they get emotional, that's okay. And we know we can hold space for someone while they cry, and allow them that release, and to say, it's okay. It's okay if you don't want to cook for people or show up at the party, and it's okay. And to give people permission to do what they need. And even asking that question, yes, bless you, of what do they wish could be different, better, more, helps them to start to think that, to think about, even what's underneath that, because sometimes
What is it? What is it?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, part of it is like Vicki was saying, that they have to have the freedom and the safety to be honest about what's really going on for them in that moment. And then I think also it's a flip side of that, is to give them hope of what is possible. Like, here's where you are, and that is true. But what's also true is that you don't have to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
There is a way out of where you are. And so I think it's kind of, it's both, it's like Vicki was saying, giving them permission and then showing up for them as a safe person. And then also pointing them towards, there is a way out and I can show you if you want.
Mm.
And I think that it's also important, and I love it's making me think of a woman that I worked with recently who lost her daughter in a very freak accident. She was only 15. And so it was very sudden. And I remember her tears, and I cried with her thinking about it. But I remember her saying, I don't want to get over it. I don't want to move on, you know? And that's just so real. And I think that the beautiful thing about the grief recovery process is it's a way to truly honor someone's life. So it's a way to honor that person that you've lost and also honor your own process of grieving them.
Mm-hmm.
And the holidays can bring up this, like we talked about, this feeling that I'm supposed to be somewhere, some certain way for people, and to just remind people that they 100% can be where they are. And I think that that's something that I love about the process of grief recovery, is it's really about honoring what our truth is, honoring the pain, honoring the person. And
Mm.
I think that that can be something that feels comforting
Mm.
too.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah, great question.
That is a really good question.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, the holidays can definitely bring up things and make you feel all kinds of ways.
Now I also love that, just the visual of this little girl, and, and some of the losses that she might have experienced, and then how it just kind of keeps piling up as she gets older. Now, was that I loved it so much. I don't think I would have kind of thought about it, but like it was that is that where we always want to start as a child, kind of like, as if we give an example, I mean, obviously it starts typically as a child when we start accumulating, losses, but is that the best? I mean, to just start, because I know I've heard people like, oh, I had a pretty good childhood, or, and but you're right. I mean, how you guys said it at the beginning, we all have grief somewhere.
I think a lot of it is, everybody's life is their normal. I mean, like,
Mm.
I kind of, this is, way before grief recovery, I even heard about it or knew about it. But, when I would kind of get closer to people and you start talking about your life and your childhood, and I would tell people about my childhood and growing up and my mom having a cardiac arrest when I was 8, and my dad and I taking care of her for 13 years and cleaning her up. And basically, I would talk about it like, because that was my normal.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I started having conversations with people over the years that I'm like, oh, wow, that was actually pretty rough. And not that I wasn't sad about, having that situation happen with my mom, or that I wasn't, upset or anything, but it was just, but there was part of it that just felt like it was my normal. And it wasn't until I was able to start being able to tell my story that it was like, oh, everybody experiences their lives at 100%.
Mm.
That's what that means.
Mm.
So when you start digging into what people's quote normal happy childhood was, that's where you find wounds. And obviously, I think that there's not to compare losses, but I mean, I think there's obviously a difference between, somebody who was like severely abused and someone who, their parents were pretty good, but maybe there was some issue, or you know what I'm saying? Like, but I think that giving people that space to really think about, well, let's look at that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I think because when I think about mine, I remember when I first got introduced to this, I thought, oh, I didn't really have a lot of loss. in my life, you know, and I even remember saying, Dan should do this. This would be really good for him. And when I did do it and I did, you know, looked at my life, because something that you said, it's like, it is important to go back and start, you know, from childhood and look, because you don't even realize, because you're just in survival mode.
Mm.
And so you experience these things. And when I graphed my life, I was like, oh, wow, there's been actually quite a bit of things that were difficult, things that were hard. And, you know, you do, like Dan said, it's just your normal, but you go through not even realizing that these things are losses.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I said, when I saw, okay, unresolved grief is conflicting feelings caused by the end of a familiar pattern of behavior. I was like, wow, there's a lot that happens that creates that conflict, and we don't know what to do with it. And unless you have people that are there to help you, and that's one of the reasons why we love grief recovery so much, because we feel like when we can work with adults and help them heal, we're healing two generations. Because especially if they are adults and they have children, then it changes their parenting. 100% changes their parenting. They become aware of ways that they can say things to minimize their own children's grief and loss, because it's their coping mechanism. I minimize my own, so I find myself, it's not that big of a deal. Just move on. She probably didn't mean it. Like the way that we say things, not even realizing that we're totally minimizing, instead of being able to stop and say, hey, well, how did that make you feel? What do you wish could have happened differently? You know, like just that shift, those shifts in ways. So it's so important, and I love that question, that we do start with the childhood, because when, like that slide, I love that too, is to be able to see this little girl and to recognize all that she's carrying and all that she doesn't know how to process. And neither does her mom, and neither does her sister, and neither does her dad, and they're all dealing with it in different ways. And so, you know, it's very eye-opening to realize, you know, and we can look okay on the outside, or we can have certain temperaments that we're happy or extroverted or introverted, but as you know, as we grow up, all those things are in there. Our tea kettle is pretty full. Yeah. Yeah.
No, on Thursday I'm actually, having a class called "When the Holidays Hurt More," but I love that. Um, I really love that slide.
That visual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that visual
Yeah.
of
I'm
of
happy to
just
share it with you.
of
Yeah.
just really,
Yeah.
really, just that child. That hurting child that just continues to carry on that loss, and then here comes holidays, and woo.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the flames, they each thing, and I
Yeah.
love that we said that the trigger is not, it's like, it's just is not the feeling, it's the, because you're right. I mean, we immediately think, I always tell my kids, a friend from Austin taught me this when I was in Austin, that she said, where you go, there you are.
Yes.
And so, we can remove ourselves, like you said, Dan, from people or places, but, it's what's still inside that's undealt with, that
Yeah.
is what we
Because
have to.
isolation is kind of like another stir, right? If we just avoid.
Yeah.
Now, it's okay to avoid if you need a boundary. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not saying that, but to recognize that you're right, it isn't the flame
Yeah.
that's causing it. What we had was already there. This is
Yeah.
just
It
exposed.
depends on why you're doing it. Like if you're
Right.
isolating because you need to kind of create some safety for yourself to process some things, that's great.
Yeah.
If you're isolating because you don't know how to cope and you don't know how to deal and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're not processing your stuff, and so you just get away from people to numb out, well, then that's an issue.
Yeah. I always say give getting space is healthy, but isolating is deadly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good way to say it, for
That's a
sure.
good way. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
These are great. These are great questions. Great discussion.
Now, Monique, I see you a lot in the Facebook. I don't think I know you. How do you are you in Austin too?
No, Eugenia, I'm actually in
Can you
Canada.
turn up your volume?
Hold on.
Can't hear.
Can you hear me?
For some reason, your volume we can hear you super faint.
Oh, I have it turned all the way up.
That's odd. Her volume isn't working.
What about on your end, honey? Is there a let me make sure that there's not.
A way that I can turn it up.
Yeah.
Hold on, something popped up on the screen a while ago when you did when
We
you were
can't hear
talking.
you.
It was giving me some different options.
Hmm. It's not letting me. Um,
Did
well,
something.
Monique lives in Canada.
Wow.
Oh, hold on.
She's from Canada. Well, we might be able to figure that out after. Let's finish up and then we can chat and see if we can fix that. Um, but that is a really good. Those are great questions
Can you
and
hear
a
Yeah.
me?
great. Um, thank you for that. Great conversation there. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and like Dan was saying, we want people to know that you can say, this is where I am, and know that that is okay.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just close out by saying, here's the good news. You don't have to stay stuck in the cycle.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like you're trapped there, but you don't have to stay stuck there. Healing begins with simply acknowledging this is where I am and it's okay. Healing then continues, though, with communication with others, safe people, right? Within yourself. If you're a person of faith, with God, naming your grief and sharing it with someone safe, inviting his presence into your pain can transform the way that you navigate this season. So we just want to say thank you for spending time with us. And from our home to yours, we wish you blessings and peace during this holiday season.
Yes. Thank you so much. And keep your eye out for the email because you will get the recording and the little guide. So have a beautiful and blessed holiday.